England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com to get more from the show. That is a Substack and a great way to support the program and get every episode in your inbox. Thank you to WKXL for picking up the show on Saturday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Concord and Manchester. Support local broadcast radio for sure. Also, big thank you to Concord TV and thegranitegrok.com for sharing every episode. Excited this week to be joined by Robbie Mayrow. He is running as an independent in CD2, a very interesting idea. I really want to learn more about his platform. I'm very excited by. So I'm just going to say that right at the onset. I'm really excited to see the things he's running on in here. But either way, we'll dive all into it. Welcome to the show, Robbie.
Hey AJ, thanks for having me. Obviously, it's like it's a cool thing. It's like that's being here, being able to connect with more people. I'm assuming you had a chance to kind of look at the platform. You seem a little bit excited. You're like, oh wow, there might be something here. Just maybe there's
Just
something
maybe,
here.
just maybe. I really desperately hope. I mean, let's put it this way: the last cycle for this seat, I was let's just say I was very vocal about my opposition to the person currently in this seat for many reasons, and supported Lily Tang Williams for it, but. Hey, I'm a libertarian guy, just lost in the abyss of politics in New Hampshire, where you got to figure it out whether you go independent, Republican, and because I'm not a big fan of what's going on with the LPNH party, especially at the moment. So, what led you to decide you want to run?
Uh, so let's spin this back on you with that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like obviously you had some frustrations
Yeah,
with in looking at the landscape. And I don't think you're alone in that. I don't think the people in New Hampshire, I don't think the people in the country are alone in their frustrations with the system being what it is. So I think that there's two answers to this. One being why am I running, and then why am I running as an independent? I think why I'm running in the first place, if we were to stop there, you can only really sit there and scream at the sky for so long before you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, man, are you going to put up or shut up? It's like, are you actually going to enter the game? Are you going to put your name out there? Are you going to go ahead and start taking swings in order to fix something that you love? Or are you going to sit there and watch it burn? So, why I'm running, I think that answers that question. Why I'm running as an independent, if I look historically as what's happened with this country over the last 30 years, I don't think it's a Republican issue or a Democrat issue alone. I think they're both very, very much so hand in hand and leading us to where we are now. And I wrote about that in the Monitor. I think it came out on the 10th, kind of breaking down the state of New Hampshire in a lot of ways as far as the neglect that's taking place. That's not one party versus the other. That's both of these parties not delivering for the people of the state. And so when you start looking at all these things from that standpoint, it's like, can I change things from within? Maybe. Or is it more likely that I'm going to be forced to compromise from being within either one of these two parties? Because if you look at what's taken place, if you look at Bernie going all the way back, when he ran for president twice, you had the DNC basically put their thumb on the scales multiple times in order to shake him out because they decided that somebody else was going to get the nomination. If you look recently at what happened with Thomas Massie, and I think Thomas Massie is the litmus test for pretty much anybody running right now, regardless of party. It's like how something like that can happen, and the system being okay with it, and its own party not looking at it and saying it's a problem, or even the Democrats looking at it and saying, "Hey, this is not democracy. This is not the game that we're supposed to be playing as far as representing the people." Then that brings me to the conclusion of, what I'm doing is right. I'll never be forced to compromise based on somebody else's ideology. What I put out there is true to me. What I put out there is completely in line with what I believe, and I'm not willing to just deviate to appease. I think that's one of the things that's important. If you are a true independent, right, your job is to work with both parties. I believe, and,
you'd
and that's
hope.
what that's my strongest desire is to be able to work with both parties, kind of hand in hand. but at the same time, you can't have an influence saying, "Hey, we need you to trade off the people in Claremont so we can help the people in Des Moines, Iowa." It's like, that's not. I'm not about that. That's not what this is based on. My platform is based on the central to western half of the state, this district specifically, and its issues, and addressing those. That's the point of being a representative. That's the point of representation. What are you representing? You're representing a specific district. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure that that's top of mind.
And that's something that's totally lost in modern politics 100% because, like you brought up with the issues of the two parties, and especially at this moment, the two parties are tremendously divided. Like, obviously, I've talked about this extensively. The Democrats are a lot more lost at sea, in my opinion. But the recent primaries you've seen with them, with the Democratic Socialists of America related candidates, it's like, oh, we're not one DSA, we're all individual states with our own DSA. They all stand for the same thing when you look at their platforms. Versus the establishment Democrats, we're talking CD2, that's very much Maggie Goodlander. It's where she came from, is the main Democratic National Committee said, we want you to go back home to New Hampshire and run, regardless of whether you have any stake in the game up here. And on the Republican side, I love that you brought up the Thomas Massie example, because I think that's a huge example of the disarray that we probably are really going to see in over the next 2.5 years when the next election where we're going to be selecting the next president, and it's going to be a free-for-all for both parties, where it's going to be this MAGA movement with this figurehead versus the more libertarian-oriented part of the party, like Thomas Massie, who sometimes is willing to go across the aisle. Yes, he is also a stick in the mud when it comes to many things and refuses to play games quite often, just like Senator Paul. But and then the more traditional neoconservative Republicans like your Marco Rubios and things like that. That has nothing to do with where they came from. Like if you're from New Hampshire, you're hoping that that's the focus. You're caring about what's happening right here. It's part of the reason why I think Susan Collins has done so well up in Maine is the focus on constituent services and making sure Mainers have a say in things regardless of the party.
And that goes back to representation, right? What's the definition? You're given a charge. It's like your charge is this map right here, this outline. This is your world that you need to deliver for. And it's like no, representation has been lost. It goes back to parties. It goes back to donors. The amount of money that's poured in from out of state into the election cycle in New Hampshire is pretty grotesque. It's like you're having people that do not have a stake in living in this state trying to influence our elections and our way of life. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, definitely. And you do have a great breakdown of you actually have a full platform on your site, which is fantastic to see. Fortunately, many independent candidates or small party candidates don't consider that. Like, that's tremendously important. Go to livefreenh02.com. He's got it all outlined there. But let's start right at the top, because I mean, your first point in there is affordability for working families. As a lower middle class person in Concord, New Hampshire, seeing just everything is being more expensive. Housing, obviously, is another aspect of your platform. Healthcare is another aspect of your platform. But holistically, what's your take on the situation of affordability and why that is a focus for you?
How much time do we
Yeah,
have?
I know, right?
Because I think, look, and I'll start off by saying it's like, so right now I'm in the petition process, right? So I have to get a certain number of petitions signed. And in order to do that, I have to walk up to random people, not knowing their political affiliation, stick my hand out, introduce myself, and then they want to know what my platform is, just like what you're doing right now. So the first thing that I talk about is affordability, right? And immediately everybody's like, yeah. But then I throw it back on them and I ask them the question, why do you think we're here where we are now? How do you pair that? And they're like, well, things are just really expensive. But why? But how? But how did we get here? And then it's like, okay, so then I have a captive audience at that point. Then I can take a step back and I can say, look, the bottom line is this. We have not had any infrastructure built in this state in the last 30 years. Seabrook was it. right? That's it. Unless you want to count filling potholes, but let's just go ahead and focus on Seabrook. That was it. That was the last power injection we had in the state. All right. So you go 30 years without doing anything to fix your grid, improve your grid, anything like that. Wow. Should it be shocking that we pay some of the highest utility rates in the state? I'm not in the state, but in the region. Should it also be shocking that you know what, we don't have the ability to support larger businesses coming in because of the cost of energy? Should that be shocking also? These are the things that tend to go back to affordability in a lot of ways, a lot with things like food. Food independence is a very big piece of what I'm doing. We import 97% of our food into the state. It's like this is mind melting that we have not done anything to move the needle down to, can we get to 88? Can we take control over some of this and move it down to 88? So when we start looking at the overall infrastructure that we've built and that we've neglected in this state over the last 30 years, that is a direct through line to affordability and the fact that we are so vulnerable because of that to geopolitical shock, to things that we do at the federal government level that do not help affordability. All right. So that's one piece of it. Then the more difficult piece of it is whether or not people are willing to leave their political silo for 30 seconds to acknowledge a couple of things that have taken place as far as ceding too much power to the executive branch. That's a big conversation. Things like tariffs. That is the power of Congress, right? That feeds directly back into affordability. You want to complain about affordability, but let's get back to where it comes from. Infrastructure, DC decision making. I think tariffs is a really big one because it's not that, and a lot of people will say, hey, I support tariffs. That's fine. You can support tariffs. But you support the Constitution so much in that you're willing to say and agree that that is a role of Congress, not the executive branch, to place those tariffs. And then are you willing to swallow the fact that the Supreme Court ruled that those tariffs that were placed were illegal? Then are you willing to swallow the fact that not only are we paying those back, but we're paying it back in excess of what we took in, right? And you're not getting your money back out of it, but corporations are. So these are the things that go back to, once again, to affordability. Are we willing to recognize these things? Again, the situation with Iran, another very big deal that's going on. That geopolitical shock, we're not prepared to be able to take that on because we haven't made the proper investment when it comes to things that aren't subjected to that. Things like renewables. Not that renewables are the total answer to everything, but if you have an energy mix, you're less susceptible to this type of stuff taking place and impacting people's bottom line. So are we willing to be honest about the conversation? I am. I'm more than willing to be honest about the conversation. Do I think that China should have been hit with tariffs? Yes, I do believe this. Do I believe that they were stealing our technology? Yes, I believe this. Do we have to do certain things in order to make sure that we have global standing? 100%. But there are mechanisms in place that were granted to us by the founding fathers that are being ignored and treated as a speed bump that I find to be absolutely unacceptable.
100%. I mean, it's something I speak about extensively, is the tremendous expansion of the executive branch when we're supposed to have the legislative body is supposed to be where the laws and the rules and everything are coming from, and we've just expanded over decades and generations essentially to have this massive executive branch full of so many agencies where it's gotten to the point where the conversation is around, can the guy who's in charge of these agencies fire one of the people at the agencies he's in charge of, which is totally bonkers.
Right. Yeah. But I think, look, but again, we talk about litmus tests, at least I do all the time. I think Thomas Massie is one. But I think another one is if you're looking at this, and let's say Trump's your guy. Let's say you fully support Trump 100%. He can't do any wrong. That's fine. That's your right. I'm not going to argue with that. I'll only ask you this. Trump's going to be in office for 2 more years, right? Are you going to be okay with AOC wielding that same magical wand?
Exactly.
Now look at me in the face and tell me that you're okay with AOC basically doing that, or somebody else that swings extremely left having the ability to swing a wand, subvert Congress, which ultimately is the will of the people. Are you willing to allow that to take place? Because if you're sitting by idly now, it's just saying, well, that's my guy, I'm okay with it, go team go. Are you okay with when that pendulum swings back at you and you're faced with the same thing? We have to be honest with ourselves as Americans, and we have to be honest to the system, right? We have to be honest. In the team sports thing, you can forget about it, man. Forget about it. It is not going to get the job done.
I really would like to pivot to get your take on healthcare, which is I have many opinions when it comes to the nature of the reason why healthcare has become so expensive and access might be problematic. But this is obviously a cornerstone. Anyone who's serious, who's running for any political office, healthcare should be a fundamental component of it because it's gotten so expensive, because the landscape has become so complex. What do you think is are there some fundamental things you think that should be the focus, and what direction do you suggest we go on?
So that is what the 10,000 pound gorilla in the room, right?
Yep.
It really, really is. And it shows up on every line item and balance sheet for every, you know, every piece of the government. So you look at education. A big piece of education is not actually education being spent. It is the, piece that healthcare absorbs and benefits absorbs within that, the administrative costs of it. That's a massive piece of what we're paying out when it comes to education, is that you can look at it up and down the line. No matter what part of it, you can see healthcare is such a massive chunk. Households, another massive chunk that comes out as far as paying for healthcare. Now, the idea that the free market can take care of things when it comes to this is a fallacy, because it is not. At no point has a free market ever done anything from the standpoint of this sector. And you can look at pharmaceuticals specifically and say that they cannot be allowed to police themselves. And that's ultimately what you're asking for within a free market. It's like you're asking these companies that are basically, in a lot of ways, UNH and Humira and some of these others, they sit at the top. There's no competition. There's no mom and pop insurance company coming to the rescue to crack into the market. It does not exist. So then the burden becomes, what are we supposed to do as Americans? Can our balance sheet take on several $1 trillion a year to cover universal health care for all? Can it? Right now, I don't see it within the math, unfortunately. I'd like for it to be the case. But I don't believe that it's okay for when we're looking at healthcare in general, for every dollar spent, anywhere between 65 cents to 70 cents, some estimates even higher than that, go to anything but healthcare, right? Anything but actual healthcare. I know for me, I live in Walpole, right? I can see a doctor within a week or so. If I need a specialist, it's 4 to 6 months. So you tell me how that 4 to 6 months is even fathomable when I'm paying more and ultimately receiving less. Then ask the question, where is that money going? How has UNH's market cap grown the way it is? I'm not anti-capitalist by any means. I'm a capitalist by definition. But I have to start looking at certain things when it comes to the standpoint as far as corporate morality. And doing the right thing, having the privilege to be able to be in this country and to, harvest the paychecks of Americans. That comes with a level of responsibility, and it's not via stock buybacks. It's not that. So when I look at companies like UNH, they're the guilty party in a lot of ways to me. And it's hard for me to move around the idea that you have a for-profit industry on something that is, in a lot of ways, the most humane thing in the world, which is healthcare. It's like I struggle with that. So where is the right answer? I don't know, man. It's like we can't take on several more $1 trillion to the bottom line. But I'll be damned if we continue to feed UNH more money and have them running around just absolutely eager to reject more claims. They're running, last stat I saw, they're running like a 50% claim rejection rate, right? So if you file a claim, 50-50, they're going to reject it. They'll sit there and wait multiple times, you trying to do it to where they'll finally be like, okay, you got us, we'll pick it up.
I mean, I have a few red flags for me personally when it comes to a lot of this. I mean, what are you saying? So my own personal solutions to, or not solutions, but at least steps in the right direction would be to take it out of the hands of the federal government when it comes to dealing with these, like
Okay.
United Healthcare and things of that nature, because they are currently regulated at the federal level. The ERISA and things of that nature, with Medicare, things like that. These are all federally run programs. Is what like where should this responsibility lie? We have a considerable amount of so I started off saying healthcare. We're talking about health insurance, I'm assuming at this point, right? Is
But
focus.
at this point, that's basically what we're
Okay.
talking about. We're
So I
talking about
mean,
the ability to see a doctor at a fair rate, to be able to get good service, those types of things. And all of those things have declined, right? They all have. So I'd like for you to get to what you're saying, because I definitely have the, I want to continue this part of it because I think it's an important conversation.
it's very important. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate your willingness. I mean, where does the regulatory authority lie? I mean, full disclosure, anyone who checks out my LinkedIn, I work for the state, insurance related. So I'm not gonna take too super partisan here because it's conflict of interest or anything of that nature. But where should the hammer be that goes after the United Healthcare, the Anthems, whoever it may be, that are operating outside of what we're viewing as what's most ethical? Fortunately, in New Hampshire, we're better than a lot of other states when it comes to this, when it comes to marketplace plans. But the marketplace is not necessarily the real issue at hand, it seems like, at the population level.
Yeah, look, I thought you had the answer. I was sitting here waiting. I was like, what's he got? He's got the secret answer over there on how to fix this. That's what I was thinking. So I was kind of excited. I think it's naive for anybody to say that they have a silver bullet to fire at this problem. It's like you can't look at the profits coming out of insurance companies and digest them with the fact that we're paying more and getting less, right? Like that doesn't jive. They're getting more money, we're receiving less. That's factual. You can't move around those numbers when it comes to insurance companies in general. Okay. Who is supposed to regulate it? Look, the regulation that we have right now and the system that we have right now, it's all on the backs of what Obamacare was, right? Isn't that basically what it is?
For
Like,
marketplace plans,
again,
yes. For marketplace
but
plans, yes.
that's
For
like
when
the
it comes
structure
to
that we're looking at.
yeah, when it comes to self-funded plans, you figure what your large employers have and things of that nature. It's all regulated at the federal level.
Right. So then a lot of those things within that, since they were put in, were gutted out through the years. They were removed. Uh, I'm pretty sure Trump went through there with a stick and started beating on things a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. As far as him, kind of going in there and removing, and we can look it up just to make sure that we're being factual about it, because I think that's important. I think that the true thing when it comes to healthcare is nobody's happy with it
Yeah.
except for insurance companies. And when they're only people that are happy with it are insurance companies, you've got one hell of a problem that needs to be fixed. And so you have to create a rebalance overall when it comes to, how that money is going in and moving out. You have layers of bureaucracy within there that are siphoning off large sums of money. You can consolidate a lot of what an insurance company does. Because at the end of the day, from my standpoint, they're really nothing more than accountants. That's really all they are. They're not the doctors, they're accountants. They're glorified accountants in a lot of ways, with a room full of actuaries and towers full of actuaries that spend time figuring out ways to deny service to people and to make sure that they're returning profits to their shareholders. That's not the game. Sorry, my dogs might be getting,
You're
they,
fine.
they, they get excited when I get
Yes, you get them
excited.
worked up. Yes.
They get excited.
Let's pivot here for the last few minutes here. It's something that I know, I'm pretty sure we see eye to eye on a lot of is you have for your point number 5 on your slides, defend the Constitution, states' rights, and live free or die. This all sounds fantastic on paper, but I'm wondering specifically what it means for you.
So we said states' rights, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think states' rights are important. I think they're extremely important that because that's the most direct line to the will of the people. If the will of the people is saying something within a state or a town or whatever else, they should have the ability to have a voice in how they live their lives. So whether it be things like cannabis in a lot of ways, or I'm sure that there's just a plethora of other things that we can talk. I think data centers is another thing in a lot of ways. The idea that eminent domain can be used in order to bolster a corporate entity to come in and take resources from a state and locality, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. States and even towns and communities, they have an equal right to say who their neighbors are. I firmly believe that, and that's how I'm going to look at it all the way through in a lot of ways. Now, there's some things when it comes to the federal level that you have to acknowledge, that you have to accept and respect and deal with. But at the same time, when it comes to the most recently HB 396, with the governor vetoed most recently, that was to allow small farms to be able to harvest up to 5 animals with on-site slaughter. They're citing USDA, federal law saying that can't happen. That's when you need leadership to step in and say, you know what? Our people said that they wanted this in the vote that was almost 2-1. Our farmers are getting slaughtered themselves over here based on all of this stuff that's going on geopolitically and or otherwise. We have to make strong, bold decisions and challenge the federal government on these types of things in order for us to actually have, the liberty that we claim to love so much.
So we only got a couple minutes left. I thought you did specifically mention constitutional carry. Can you discuss that?
Yeah, I think it's really, really ridiculous that the Second Amendment is what it is. And the fact that if I go to mass or somebody else that goes to mass, they're basically walking around with a felony in their pocket. I think that these are things that there needs to be, if nothing else, reciprocation type laws to be able to protect people that are doing this, that are only wanting to protect themselves. If I drop off my lady at Logan, I don't want to worry about a felony. If I go to New York, I'm not trying to worry about a felony either. So I think that the Second Amendment is something that we should all value. And the one thing that I'll leave anybody who challenges me on this with, have you seen Terminator 2? I'm not joking. Have you seen Terminator 2? Because if you have, you're going to want at least a pistola over there to go ahead and deal with the rise of the machines. And it's not something to get, it's like you're laughing. I see you, man. I see it. But I'm not joking. I'm not being very honest in saying that these are things that we have to have the foresight for what's coming. And I do believe that AI is coming hot and fast. Robotics are coming hot and fast. You had a bot basically be able to break out and hack some stuff out of OpenAI here in the last 48 hours, able to do some shenaniganery. We have to, if nothing else, be able to protect ourselves.
Yep, definitely. From bad data, bad information getting out there, things like that, it leads to a lot of further problems. You mentioned AI, but I mean all the flock cameras out there in certain jurisdictions, things of that nature. We need to be able to protect ourselves from
that's another state rights thing, and that gets really tricky, AJ. When you start looking at how that funding comes in, how our state is basically saying that you can't do that. But the federal government is able to bypass that by going to local towns and individual sheriff's departments. They're able to bypass that to still get the same thing done. We really have to start thinking about how we're governing this state and who we're actually protecting.
All right, we're out of time, unfortunately, but it's been an awesome conversation. Robbie Mehru, if someone wants to check out your campaign or support you, what should they do?
Live free. NHO2.com. Petition is there. Instruction is there. Download it. We are at the number. We're going to blow this thing out, but every signature helps and matters. If you loved anything that was discussed or want to have more conversation, reach out. Let's do this together. This is our campaign.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time. It's been a really fun conversation, and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, it's been the New England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead, newenglandtake.com. Support the program over there. Also, try and get some independent candidates out here, some people out thinking outside the box. A huge thing for us. If you want to contact the show, be a guest, or have someone you think would be a great guest, AJ at newenglandtake.com is how you get a hold of me. Any opinions, anything I said that was wrong or you disagree with, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you, WKXL, for picking up the show. Next up over there is Facing the Future. Thank you to granitegrok.com and Concord TV for supporting the program. I've been AJ Kierstead. We'll talk to you soon.